Okay, so today we have two people from the city of Tarpon who help manage the stormwater.
Stormwater farm for the city of Tarpon Springs.
And,
I'm
do you wanna
Rob and
introduce
this is
yourselves?
Brandon.
Okay, thank you.
And like I was saying before, what we try to do is watch the water, the hydro, the water coming hitting the watershed as it disperses over our property, our town, and our waterways. Ultimately goes into our Gulf, the beaches. And what we try to do is clean all our pipes out, and that's what we have this machine for. And the big thing is getting the runoff off the road, not letting the sediment build up and dirt clogging up the pipes that let everything go clean into our ponds. You might see the ponds with fences around them. Okay, well that's our retention ponds, and that's where the pipes go from the road to them. And then we also have, if you guys can see this, the street sweeper. You ever see them go up and down the road? Okay, well that's our first defense for the sediment on the road. Because when it rains, all the runoff comes from the driveways of homes and businesses and construction sites. And it just ends up, the leaves falling down. That's nitrate and phosphates. It changes the chemicals of the water. We want to keep everything good for the animals and for us. Ultimately, it's going to be our drinking water. So, that will take the dirt off the road, the sweeper, and we keep all that out of the way. And then when it does get down into the drains, the grates on the side of the road that you see, there's pipes under there, and they go all underneath. And I'll show you this in a moment. And this is a back-on truck. We have one outside, and we'll show you what it does. So whatever sediment does go in that for the grate, we'll use this. And this is a big vacuum, and it has a hose. And what we do is we back out, we take out the grate, we put the vacuum in there, and we put the hose in, and we put all the sediment out. Because once those pipes get clogged, now we have a problem. And believe it or not, we have raccoons, turtles that travel those pipes to get to our ponds. So it's very important that we keep all of them clean. So we'll suck that out and make sure everything's flowing and everything's clean. We'll go to construction sites, make sure they're not doing any illicit discharge. You ever see where they're building buildings, you see a black fence around it, plastic? Well, that's to keep all the sediment from the runoff going into the roads. So we'll make sure that they don't have any oil leaks, hydraulic leaks, anything that's not natural water. And we'll go to businesses like mechanics, factories, make sure they're not having anything coming out of their windows. And just because they do that, and they'll just let it run right into the grass or right into our ponds. We'll do homes. If we see people spilling paint cans or oil, or they have their boats in the driveway and it's dripping, we'll go and ask them, please don't do that, because people will just dump it. Brenda and I just saw, about a week ago, they were redoing a pool, and they were taking the concrete out and just going right into our drains. And our river is right there.
That's terrible.
Yeah, and we had to tell them, please don't do that. And you know what, they went to do it again. So it's important that, why we're here is so you guys are aware of what's happening. So if you see something like that, you can give us a call. And we'll come and straighten it out and do the best we can. And because we do all we can. See all the grass along the sides of the roads? You see it looks like a gully? Well, what that does, when the runoff hits that, this also goes to a grate on there, and there's pipes that also go to them retention ponds. So what the grass does, it filters out all the chemicals. So it goes through there and acts like a filter. So when the water runs through it, it's getting cleaner as it gets to the ponds. And we have what we call trash septors. Collects all the debris and bags and the bottles. And the bags are the worst thing, because what happens when the turtles get to it? They get all choked up, right? And they have straws now. They're trying to get away from the straws because the animals start eating the straws, the birds, and it starts to bother them. So that's pretty much what we do, is we just are always inspecting the waterways, the rivers. If we see anything discolored, like if you see a shine on the road, like a puddle, and it's all purple and shiny, that's a good indication to us that there's a problem. So if we see it going into the water, we have to follow it and see who's doing that. You know what I mean? It could be oil or grease or anything. Restaurants, same thing. They'll take their grease and just put it out in the streets. So if you see anything like that, you do not want to get it. So we want to keep the animals healthy, right? Because we don't have much water. And the more people we have, the more we have to stay on top of it. We got to be aware of everything that's going on. Because we don't want the pollution to come. Because, like I was saying before, when the rain comes, evaporates and goes back up in the air. And if we're polluting that way, that's what we're going to be breathing, that's what we'll be drinking, and the animals are going to start disappearing. So that's pretty much what we do. We have this model here for you, and we're going to show you what illicit discharge looks like when the water gets polluted. We're going to show you when it's clear, and then we're going to show you when it's polluted and where it goes. And we have some things here for you. You can give them a couple of hats. Yeah, what do they got? Another big thing, our motto is only rain down the drain. So, I want to give you a few things today so you understand what we're talking about. That's a yo-yo, in case
Oh,
some of
fun.
you do not know.
There'll be no playing in class,
Yeah, you take
okay?
time.
Wait till lunchtime or after school.
Like one? Sure. This kind of looks like a little party hat. Oh, it even has a city name.
Thank you.
Everybody wants one. Yeah, okay.
So we try to make everybody aware of where the rainwater goes when it hits the watershed. You have a lot of runoff, and if you have a lot of concrete or parking lots, the water just rushes right off immediately. It doesn't have time to soak into the ground. So it's very important that we have the water go into certain areas quickly so it's not sitting. We don't want the floods, and that's something else that we do. We have a lot of pumps and we clear up the roads from the floods, because sometimes they get clogged up, the grates and the inlets, and we gotta go out there, clean it off, and then we have to pump things out. And these are portable straws. Pretty soon you won't be seeing straws in restaurants or anywhere, because they don't want the plastic. So they're trying to encourage people taking these. Whether it works or not, it would help the animals out.
Wash it before you use it though.
I think something I'm leaving out, Brandon.
Awesome, thank you.
Who didn't get one? Just you?
We keep
Yeah. Can I give him a coloring book? Did they get a coloring book? Yeah, you can do it. So what we'll do is we'll go around to homes and we'll put these on the door so they're aware of what we're trying to do. Keep updated. Clean up after your pet. Because what happens when the dogs and the cats go to the bathroom on the side of the road and they don't pick it up? Where do you think it goes? It goes into our water drains and goes into our ponds. Did you? And if you open up your coloring book, you'll see everything pertaining to the watersheds. And these are tape measures. You can bring them home to your parents, or you can use them yourself with a level one.
that works very hard.
Thank you. What am I?
Other than crayons, you want to do that one?
You can give them one or two. We have like some crayons. Do you want me to give them to them? You want something?
We have a lot of crayons,
Oh, okay.
so I think that they'll be okay.
This is what you'll see on top of the inlets that we have. Inlets are the grates. You see the holes on the side of the road where the water runs into. Okay, and you'll see these on the side. In
Yeah.
Tarpon Springs you will.
Yeah, when I went for a walk with my mom and I saw them.
So we'll glue them. And that's what it says. Only rain down the drain.
You can still think. Yeah,
This is one foot. And it
I'm not
goes
gonna ask you.
I don't know, this is the first time for me, so I'm not sure what they are.
So what we'll do is, if they're done giving this up to you, we're gonna bring you up to the watershed and show you how everything works. What can I decide? I'll do anything. Okay, so if you want to come up here, we'll show you the watershed. So what happens is when it rains, the watershed is an area of land, and it's usually from up top, and it will just run down over the whole community. Okay? So when it starts, and the highest spot, it's just going to flow into our waterways, our streams, our rivers, or this, in this model here, say this would be the Gulf. It all ultimately goes there, from the rivers into the Gulf.
So this is a model of a watershed?
This would be the model of the watershed. This would be the community. And you have all pipes on here, when I talk about the stormwater pipes. So when the water goes, it goes into these little inlets. So we have pipes going under here, and we'll have grassy parts of over here, so the water goes in, filters out before it goes into the river, to try to eliminate any kind of pollutants. So of course, when it's normal, and they're starting to make buildings put bushes on top, so it just doesn't drain and go all over the parking lots, because there's nowhere for it to go. So they'll put bushes up in here so it absorbs any runoff or any sediment, you know, and then they'll clean it out eventually. But see, like this cows, the little farm, the little poop, right? Well, look what happens when it rains. See? That would all go right into the Gulf, right? I'm just going to show you how it flows. See how it starts to flow? And when if you're up top, this would be all eroding, right? So what we do is we try to stop the eroding. We'll put rocks along there to try to keep it from eroding and the sediment going further and further all over the place. So you see how it would come out at the top of here, and it would come here and go down the river rather than just sitting in a parking lot.
So the water coming down there and eroding, that's called runoff, right? When it's-
Yeah, it's all running off.
Runoff, yes, runoff is where,
So if it's running off, it's taking the cow poop, right? It's taking the grease from the cars. That's how we go to construction sites. So if that's leaking oil or gas, see how it's just running, right? Now if everything was bad, as far as what we call illicit discharge, anything but rain, so say if it's oil, fertilizers, if you have fertilizers in this grass to make it strong, it all goes into the water. And what's in the water are turtles, right? Fish, birds, so they're eating all this poison. And this is what it would look like. See the discolorment? So imagine that that's all oil, paint, whatever people decide to throw out on the side of the road. Okay? So Brent and I would come here with the sweeper to try to get it out, and then we would use our vacuum truck to go in there with the vacuum and suck it out.
You've seen manholes.
Here is a
You
picture of the
lift
backhoe
manhole because it's down in the ground.
And you have the tractor there, and if the tractor's leaking oil, right, now the cows are going to eat it. And where's it all going? Right into our Gulf, right?
What about if there's flooding? What happens?
Well, then we go out and we look at all our drains. We know our flooding spots. So if you have like in the fall when all the leaves are coming down, and we know where to go to and clean them out, or sometimes the pipe will just be backed up. We go out there with this, the backcon truck, or what sometimes is as simple as just lifting up the grate or sweeping off the grate. You can go right out there. The papers you get with the plastic delivered to your house, the newspapers, they're usually the first ones to clog up the drain. Something simple like that.
Yeah, during a flood, the rain can actually cause erosion, and then soil can leak also into the drain.
That's
right?
why it's important. Yes, that's why it's so important to make sure that we have everything flowing in the right direction to go right to our ponds, so it doesn't. When the dry season, it takes a little longer because it takes time for it to percolate, which means absorb into the ground. The runoff is a lot more severe when it's dry out. But when you have periodic rain, it gets soft and it absorbs. And that's why we make swales. We'll put like little deep, like this would be grass sometimes. So the water flows into it and absorbs it and goes into our inlets. So you have to have the inlets in a way where the pipes are running to our ponds. And those ponds are probably the ones you see with the fence around it. Those are called retention ponds.
And also, when you have the plants, doesn't that absorb it so the water can go down into the groundwater?
Yeah, we put bushes for the embankments on hills. We'll put bushes there because the roots will keep the bank tight and strong. If not, as time goes by, it erodes. And it still erodes. And that's why we do inspections all the time, because we have to go back and fix it. We put riprap on it, some big rocks. And there's other things that we do to make them strong so they don't erode. But as far as our ponds, that's what our main concern is, so everything keeps holding it, and the retention ponds absorbs a little bit of it, and then we dig out them ponds to get out all that runoff, all that sediment, because after a while it becomes toxic to the animals.
The grassy swales also cool the water. So if you have a large parking lot and it rains, the parking lot's going to be quite warm. It's going to be hot. The water falls on. The water's hot, and the swales will cool it down. They filter. Also, they cool the water before it goes into the pipes, because once it gets into the concrete pipes, it doesn't really cool down. So that would head to the bay and heat up the bay and algae and things like that.
That's why we're saying, like the buildings with these parking lots, a lot of times they'll just absorb it, so it doesn't come out so fast.
Have you heard of a green roof? Something you talked about? Yeah, they basically just put grass, bushes, trees, flowers, whatever on the top of the building. It helps keep the building cool, and it also absorbs some of the water, the runoff.
So what we do to the land mass affects the water, right?
Yeah.
And what if we pollute? What if we just throw out a bunch of just onto some vacant lot or something? We throw out a bunch of old plastic stuff we have, or trash that we don't want, just throw it in somewhere.
Well, that happens a lot, and we have to clean it up. There's the Parks Department, there's Roads and Streets Department, there's Stormwater Department. So if we see a lot that has that, then we call the Roads and Streets and they'll get it. But anything that's near our ponds or along the beach or the rivers, we go out and we take care of it.
Yeah.
We have trash scepters in a pond. So what happens is the pipes go into the pond, and then there's a big fence there. And where the outfall for the pipe is, there'll be a fence. It's called a trash scepter. And what happens is it collects all the debris that
Sort of
flows
filters
through
it.
them pipes.
Filters it, okay.
All the bottles and then brown bags that you see from the stores, the plastic bags. So then we have to periodically go out and clean that all out. And we dig all that out all the time.
So landfills and trash thrown on top of the land can actually affect the groundwater or the water in the retention ponds.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And like an actual landfill, they have their own system to clean it, before anything leaches through the ground or anything. But
Into the groundwater.
But here in town, we can go 5 feet down and hit groundwater. So that's how shallow everything is. That's why we say clean up after your pets. And don't let any of that illicit discharge, anything but the rain, because otherwise it goes right in there. Any questions? So what goes down the drain? Only rain. right? And if you see anything like that, this is what it's gonna look like. See, it just falls right in here. And you see the Gulf as a big body of water, right? And the rivers, but this is what happens. And the crabs and all the animals that go on the bottom, all the sediment just settles to the bottom. And that's what they have to deal with.
Can you tell them, for the students at home, what they're looking at right now when you said that that's what happens? What happens? Because I can't bring the camera that close, or maybe, let me see if I can bring it a little closer so they can see. So
this is
has happened here?
this would be the Gulf, and this would be our little streams, and the watershed. As the water hits it, it's flowing down through our pipes, and we're trying to keep it clean. But if it's pollutants of oils and paints, it comes right into here, and this would be the Gulf, and this is what the animals on the bottom would be dealing with. Even though the water looks nice and clear, this is what they have to deal with at the bottom.
Now, if you